This guy comes from Minneapolis. He likes chicken tenders and hates Gina Davis. She even alive anymore? Wexler! So how y'all doing tonight? I'm just being polite. So, a lot of guys fantasize about having sex with two different women at once, but to me, I think a threesome looks like a lot of work. I mean, basically, you're spending twice the amount of effort for pretty much the same result. But instead of just one woman harshly criticizing me to the verge of tears, there'd be another one just sitting there, agreeing with her the whole time. Doing it wrong. Thanks, Dad. Speaking of birth control, I live in West Hollywood now, which is tough because I've had to train my mind to immediately assume that any good-looking girl I see on the street is automatically a transvestite until she proves otherwise. Learned that one the hard way. That one I thought was a girl once turned out to be a he/she with the body of Heidi Klum and the voice and handshake of Ving Rhames. Oddest dentist appointment I ever had. Also, walking around the streets of West Hollywood in the morning is a little weird because you can always tell which guys got lucky last night based on the fact they tend to walk like this. Hey, wouldn't it be great to be full-blown retarded for just one day? I mean, they're just so happy all the time. Plus the positives definitely outweigh the negatives. I'd have super strength. I could play with all my old toys again. And I'd finally have a valid excuse for not being gainfully employed. And on the topic of Nev Campbell, right on. Lately, I've been becoming jealous of girls with anorexia, basically because of how much money they save on food. I also hate seeing stories about handicapped people in the news because they've always accomplished so much more with no legs than I ever will with two working legs. I mean, why can't we ever have a story about a crippled bank robber or a quadriplegic who makes a sex tape with Deborah Messing? It's always about some guy from Santa Clara who saved 5 orphans from a burning building using just his teeth. Meanwhile, I'm sitting here, I can barely dress myself. I actually dated a girl with one hand once, which was a lot harder than it looks. On our 3rd date, I decided to take her to the producers, which was a terrible idea because I really didn't take into account the amount of clapping that goes on in musicals. So, at first I tried to overcompensate and clap really loud because she just couldn't clap. But then, after a while, I looked over what her version of clapping was, which was like a heroin addict getting ready to shoot up, you know. So, in my infinite wisdom, I decided to do the same thing, you know, show of solidarity. Needless to say, it didn't work out, which I was okay with because I was sick of feeling guilty every time I played video games around her. Like it's my fault to play Street Fighter 4 and have 2 working hands to do so. Anyone out here like horror movies? I like them, but if I go to one, I have to go a day before all by myself and take a girl. so I know when all the scary parts are, and I'll look more manly on our date. I actually never want to have kids due to my family's history of mental illness, but I feel that if I did, I look forward to the PTA meetings the most because it would give me a chance to meet and greet everyone that lives in my immediate area that had unprotected sex a lot around the same year I did. Honestly, I don't even think they talk about school. I think they just high-five a lot and gloat about how fertile they all are while mocking the 1 or 2 poor families who were forced to adopt. I'm on fire now, folks. Speaking of gazpacho, guys, a quick word of advice. If you ever plan on breaking up with your girlfriend, make sure you fuck her in the ass first. That way, apparently I have some supporters. That way, no matter what she does, like destroy your stuff afterwards or sleep with your brother, you can always be like, hey, I fucked you in the ass. Speaking of things that Jews aren't allowed to do, I think we need more Jews in professional wrestling. I'm Jewish, and if I was going to be a wrestler, I'd try to incorporate as much of my Judaism into my character as possible. My name would be something super traditional, like Rabbi Mayhem or the Shabbat Soldier. My entrance music would be anything from the Fiddler on the Roof soundtrack, Hava Nagila. My finishing move would be the dreidel drop. I'd even have a sexy black-haired chick named Esther escort me to the ring. And while I'm wrestling, she could just be on the outside complaining the whole time about talking to the doctor or lawyer. Oh, how do I transition out of this? Hey, how great is it to see an ex-girlfriend out in public with a guy who's like 50 times uglier than you? And why is it every time I see an ex-girlfriend, the first image that pops into my mind is the last sexually degrading experience we shared together? I saw an ex at Safeway once, and immediately, the first thing that popped into my head was the time that she dressed up like Lisa Kudrow and stomped on my testicles. The Lakers? All right, that's it for me. My name is Wexler. Thank you.
That had to be the guy Hoss came to see.